Hello and welcome to From the Vault, episode 27. I am here, your wonderful, caring, kind, considerate host, Nathaniel and with me, the cold, aloof, stone-hearted Holthauser. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, I think your review of me is probably... I mean, I almost wish I was a bit more hard. I'm kind of imagining me as Bruce Willis now.
Sure.
Just like, you know...
Stepping on glass.
Yeah.
Killing Alan Rickman.
Being a hard man in general. I'm not hard. I'm very soft.
That's true.
And quite squidgy.
Yeah,
so,
like a marshmallow.
But like,
you remind me of the end of Ghostbusters.
I have enough crow's feet that some people might think I'm hardened.
That's fair.
But I feel like I've just...
I think over this weekend you could be described as hardened, battle hardened.
Yeah, okay, I can dig it. I did fight kind of hard at Lille. My results, I think, don't show it that way, but I tried my best.
Even people who don't do well fought hard.
Yeah, that's true. That being said, I did have a really great weekend.
Good.
It was really different than most weekends we've had before, and I'm glad we kind of set it up so we can dedicate some time to cover GP Lille, but I guess I wanted to say, like, I'm not just going to be talking about results and like metagame and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just like how different it was to go to a GP alone.
Yeah, I think that
makes sense.
It was slightly unfortunate. I wasn't able to make it out there with you, and neither were any of the other members of Team Vault, so you headed out and you met up with some of the other kind of Scottish people who'd gone along.
Well, I was going to say, even then, like, there just wasn't that many Scottish players. Like, very few of the Glasgow guys went. Very few of the people that we think of as regular kind of grinders from Scotland very few of them were there. It was pretty much just me and Gaz.
Sure.
And
I thought, didn't Duncan go?
No, I thought he went too. He commented on a post of mine that made it sound like it. So on the Sunday, I hit him up and I was like, "Hey man, what are you doing? You still in the event? Whatever. Like, how's stuff going?" He's like, "Oh, I'm at home watching anime." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm not in Lille." I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot." But
was it really just Gaz and Brad?
Yeah. Gaz and Brad, and obviously Brad's a Scottish player, well respected, but he lives in England, so he's got his own circles.
Yeah, he tests with different people.
Yeah, it's lame.
He's a cool dude, though.
Very cool. I have a lot of respect for Brad. He's a very good player, and we had some really good chats this weekend. Though,
he's also just a good guy from the interactions I've had with him.
Yeah, he's super chilled, and I'm always happy to see him at a GP and get some time to chill out with him. We had a couple drinks and a meal as well, which was cool, and good chats.
Excellent.
Anyways, so what are we covering today on the podcast?
GP
Lille.
We were going to talk about your experiences at GP Lille, both magic-wise and also not magic-wise, if you're interested in sharing some of that. We're going to talk about the actual results, not just for Holt, but for everybody, including the top 8, looking at them in the top 16, and just seeing, like, what does that mean? What does it tell us? What does it indicate for the metagame going forward? Because I feel like these GPs were not huge game changers, but they definitely were clarifiers in terms of a lot of the, where the top levels of the metagame sit. Mm-hmm. Or at least the perceptions of those top levels. Yeah,
like a lot of these decks that we're going to run through were ones that we actually kind of talked before when we were talking about pillars of the format.
So. Well, I think it's also a very exciting set of GPs because I don't think that what the people thought were the consensus best decks won either of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can.
There's an argument to be made that GP New Jersey was won by a consensus best deck, but I don't think you could. Maybe you could argue it for Lille, but I think Lille's final especially was like a really clear indication that this format is definitely not simple.
Yeah, it's definitely not solved. It's deep.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it feels so good to be in a standard environment where you can have that, where you look at a top 8 and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, not just like some nonsense crazy deck is in there. You get that modern. I remember when Lantern Control first, like, what a GP or whatever, and everyone was like, what the heck is this nonsense? Blah, blah. It's a different feeling from that. It's more like, oh, these decks were out there.
Yeah. But we knew about most of them.
Yeah.
But people didn't really consider them because there was just so many.
Yeah, exactly.
And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the Team Unified Standard format because it's on Holt's mind. This weekend, we have what we call the Scottish Store Championships, which are like a Scottish tradition. We always help our World Magic Cup team prepare for the World Magic Cup by having a tournament in the format they're going to be playing, which in this case is Team Unified Standard. And all the stores send teams.
Yeah, it's kind of a big friendly event. It's about helping out the community as well as it was funny when we did the End of the Battlefield kind of interview thing a couple weeks ago. The interviewers sort of asked us like, "Oh, do you have any rivalries like with other countries? Anyone you want to be at the World Cup, whatever?" And all I could think of in my mind is like, no, we have a bunch of rivalries here. Yeah. Like, it's a chance. So the Scottish Store Championship's a good chance for like the Dundee, like Highlander games that play against the Vault, or like West End games in Glasgow and stuff like that. And there's little beefs and rivalries there. And it's a lot of fun to be able to play that out in a way that's kind of helping the Scottish national team. That being said, I think the Scottish national team has never won the Store Championship.
No, they always get crushed.
Absolutely.
Every single time. I must apologise this year as the Vault will not be sending a team, given that all of the players are really busy.
Except for me.
Except for Holt, who's on the national team.
Yes.
So apologies for that one, guys. We won't let the side down next year. But yeah, so going back to our first topic, which is GP Lille and your experiences of it, tell us a bit about Lille, how did it go for you?
So obviously we talked a bit last week about what decks we were going to... I was thinking about playing, what we'd been testing. I did end up running Arclight Phoenix deck.
Yep.
But I did not run Crackling Drakes.
Sure.
I ran Rekindling Phoenix.
How did that work out?
Very, very well.
Okay.
I was much, much happier. It's pretty hard for me to think of a matchup where I was like, oh man, I really wish this was a Crackling Drake right now. Except for games where like I was just losing anyways.
Sure.
And it was more like, okay, this would be a 1% chance instead of like a 0.3. You know what I mean? Like a really, really marginal difference when Crackling Drake would have been better. And then all the other times when it wasn't obviously Crackling Drake, it was Rekindling Phoenix. This was like, oh my god, this is so good. So I was really happy with that call. To give some kind of context for the weekend, we kind of mentioned it before. This was my first GP going alone to a GP, actually. So I didn't travel with anyone. Basically, since winning nationals, I'm much in my mind. I'm like, okay, I just want to take as many opportunities to get pro points as I can. But like in my personal life, I've been having a ton of stress lately. My thesis is sort of coming to a head. The day before I flew out to Lille, I submitted like a 10,000 word chapter for it. So I'm almost halfway done with the literal length of my thesis, and I'm just like stuck into it. And then like obviously I have my job. For those of you who don't know, I am a practicing psychotherapist. So I see clients once a week, so I have my caseload, and I also help like manage an agency. And this is all like to the side of like also teaching classes and stuff like that, dealing with normal social stuff, trying to keep up with Magic. Long story short, it's a lot. So this weekend as well, going alone, I was kind of thinking like, I don't want this to be just another stress point.
Sure.
I want this to be like sort of rejuvenating. You know what I mean?
Sure, we don't throw cardboard dragons at people to add to our stress levels.
Exactly. Like, and sometimes GPs can be like that. So I was kind of reflecting a lot before the weekend and just being like, actually, okay, this GP, I want to do well. But I also want to make sure like this is valuable and enriching for me as a person. I want this to be fun. I want this to be enjoyable. So I think oddly enough, not having the team around meant that like when I was out of the venue, I wasn't that worried. And I was just kind of able to think about like, hey, I've played this deck a lot. I've thought a lot about it. Let's just lock it in. Let's just do it. Sure. I think the one change I made to the list was I did end up running a Star of Extinction in the sideboard. I ran to one of the vendors and grabbed one because I was looking at like, I don't know, it was like my second fight with fire in the sideboard, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
That's
whatever.
Fair. I've seen a lot of lists cutting the fight with fire from the sideboard entirely. Mm-hmm. Given that like if you're playing Beacon Bolts, I'm not really sure what job they're doing.
Exactly, and it's kind of odd because like I think actually if you do run fight with fire in the sideboard, it might just be supposed to be more Beacon Bolts.
Sure.
Because they're like 2-for-1s anyways. But,
well, they're not 2-for-1s, but they are like 2 of the effect.
Exactly. Like when you draw it, it's kind of like having access to 2. It does cost an extra card, but if you want to use it again.
When you draw it, you've effectively drawn 2 Beacon Bolts.
Yeah.
But you've just turned one of the other cards in your hand into a Beacon Bolt.
I guess the biggest difference is like basically on turn 3, where you can't reliably cast your Beacon Bolt for more than 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be like the best case that you like cast 2 spells on turn 2 or whatever. Anyways, so flew out, got to the event, ran into Gaz in the airport, ended up having a really, really nice time with him on the Friday where we didn't really talk at all about Magic, which was kind of great. We talked a lot about the Magic community. I talked to him a lot about his experiences of doing GPs alone, because Gaz goes to like every GP.
Yeah, Gaz does not miss one.
Yeah, well, I think he does. I think now it will be at the stage with the new schedule for next year. Now that we're getting fewer European GPs, that I think the way Gaz does it, like he won't miss a single one. Like before, I think he does one a month.
Sure.
Like he always hits at least one, sometimes more than one. So I was talking to him about it. We had a really great time, had a great dinner. Next, played an event on the Friday as well. So just played a kind of double up. Wanted to get my feet wet, just like get used to it. And walking around the event, I was like kind of shocked. There was a lot of people playing standards. You know, likewise, there's a lot of last chance qualifiers with people playing standard. There's double ups. There's all the other events. A lot of people are wanting to get practice on the Friday for the main event. And I just like saw no green black. Like walking around, there was just like so little of it. There was tons and tons of Arclight Phoenixes on that like first event. I played 2 mirrors, and I was like, oh, okay. There was a lot of control running around, and a lot of mono red and like some mono white, not nearly as much, but like way more than I thought there would be. And I kind of just like. At first, I was kind of walking around, and when you're not like hanging out with your friends, you're looking at tables, you're watching games of Magic, all this kind of stuff, and I thought it would be good to kind of like walk around and think about like, okay, what do I want to bring tomorrow? And I'm not gonna lie, I did have a moment where I was a bit like, did I just bring the wrong deck? Like,
sure, yeah. Did I hit the wrong level? Am I level 2 when you're meant to be level 3?
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, I at first, again, going in line with like, okay, I'm going to try and enjoy this weekend. Like a success for me, like a really strong success would have been getting just 1 pro point. Even day 2ing, actually. I haven't day 2'd in the new GP format. I've had 3 win-in-ins, but I've never been able to get the X2 at the end of day 1. So day 2 would be fine, good. If I got a pro point, that'd be great. I just want to tack on as many of those as I can to hopefully make a pro level basically this year on the back of the WMC. So looking around, I was a bit like, oh god, am I like Rekindling Phoenix, is that too much of a concession to green black? Like I don't see that much green black, whatever.
It seems quite good in the mirrors though.
Yes, that actually
like it really beats up on the other Crackling Drake. So they play Crackling Drake and you play Rekindling Phoenix, and they're like, oh, this feels very bad.
You're 100% right. And that's actually what put me over the edge. I was glad I played a couple mirrors because I was like, oh man, Rekindling Phoenix is awesome in this. And it's not the best against control because it didn't just eat like a cancel or whatever. But
sure, it's still fine. It still doesn't die to like Justice Strike, which is what everyone's playing.
If you resolve it, it's like, okay, cool, this is a 2-for-1. And I'm happy to take 2-for-1s against control where I can get it. And anyways, control is really favorable because you have Arclight Phoenix. So it's like, fine. So I kind of went home, thought about it. I made my 1 change to the sideboard with the Star of Extinction just because I thought like it wasn't that optimal. I added a couple extra negates to my board. And then I kind of just looked at it and I was like, you know what? Like, this deck's good. Like, just because I saw a bunch of stuff out there, I'm not going to get out of my own head and kind of shake myself up. Let's rock with this.
Yeah, don't stress the details. Like, the chances that any individual single card sideboard change is going to be that impactful is actually quite low.
Yeah.
And it's impossible really to know what you're actually going to face in the like actual tournament.
And I think that was one of the big reasons I did just like go and snap off the Star of Extinction was like, I'm not sure this is the best sideboard card, but it's like having access to 1 is like something that will change a percentage of my games more than having the second Fight with Fire or like whatever it was. You know what I mean? Other techs that I did make in my main deck is I decided to run a copy of Expansion Explosion.
Sure.
This card really impressed me. And I felt a bit annoyed when I was testing before that I kind of overlooked it. Like, we were kind of like, the backside's not that good, blah, blah, blah. But the front side actually is just, like, quite good a lot of the times. And
so
I was really impressed with it.
I've been playing a lot of Jeskai Control online recently, and I have enjoyed copying my like, Arclight Phoenix opponents'
cantrips.
Yeah. Mostly stuff like Tormenting Voice is, like, that's real sweet when you get to... They can also Tormenting Voice in turn 2, and you expansion it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll just draw 2.
I think also, like, sometimes you just get weird points in weird corner case matchups, green black is running more and more Vraska's Contempts, and like the way they beat you, I feel like is they like turtle up underneath a Planeswalker, and just like whenever you play a Phoenix or a Resilient Threat, like Vraska's Contempting it, and being able to just be like, okay, play my threat, and they're like, kill yours, and you're like, okay, 2 mana, at least I get the Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah, we're back in parity again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I top deck a bit better than you because I have enormous amounts of deck manipulation.
Exactly. So, yep, in the main event, when I actually played it, I ended up going to a win-in and losing, which was a bit discouraging, but it was a good fight. Like, I felt very present that day. One of the nice parts about this and made it feel a bit more like a vacation as well is I had a really good friend of mine come through and visit from Paris, who actually we originally met together 2 years ago when we went to GP Lille. She used to live in Lille.
I sweated about whether my burn list was correct while Holt seduced her on the balcony. It was great.
Seduce is a very strong word. We had a great conversation.
Sure.
Had a lot of drinks and had a lot of cigarettes, and we ended up becoming really good friends. We continued talking, so she came through and visited. It was really nice to have a rehash, but it meant we had a couple drinks the night before. That being said, I wasn't too messy or anything like that. I had a bit of a headache in the morning.
Just a whole Hauser standard.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is what I was really happy with is like, maybe I wasn't 100% on my game, but again, this weekend was about fun,
sure,
as well as like trying to play my best.
Yeah,
I felt I played really tight. I felt I was present in all my games, and I was focused on just what was happening. I think I had one misplay the entire weekend where I can look at it and be like, no, I think that was just wrong, and that was like a keeper mulligan.
Sure,
with basically like I was on the play, and the hand was like 2 Radical Idea, Arclight Phoenix, 4 lands. I'm looking back at the time, I'm like, oh, this could be anything, and then looking back now, I'm like, actually, this hand does nothing. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have kept that.
In my personal experience, I've tended towards mulliganing the land-heavy, otherwise acceptable hands in Phoenix, because especially if you're countering stuff like Radical Idea, then Radical Idea just turns into lands. Yeah. In my experience, especially if you're planning to discard the Phoenix to it. So you end up just like flooding pretty hard, and your cantrips aren't powerful enough. Like you don't have Brainstorm or Ponder. So you're not, like, able to just never draw a land past turn 5.
Yeah.
Like, you just draw a lot of cards.
Yeah.
You don't draw specific cards.
Exactly. So, I got probably the most punishing circumstance for that, which was, I was on the play against an opponent, and they ended up being mono red, and I actually don't think I could have beat their hand anyways, because they had the classic, like, turn 1, Firebrand, turn 2, Pyromancer. I'm like, okay, we can deal with this. And turn 3, they're like, Wizard's Lightning, Wizard's Lightning, Wizard's Lightning. And I was like,
okay.
Yeah. And then untap Lightning Strike, Lightning Strike.
My left total's like nothing? Okay.
Super dead. Yeah. So it was like, okay, that's fine. That being said, so my matchups during the day, I played against Mono Red in the first round and beat that. Actually, I was really impressed with Rekindling Phoenix there. I think it's one of our worst matchups with the Phoenix deck, so I was like happy about that. Lightning didn't strike twice, and so I lost in the second round against Mono Red. Sure. Then I played a kind of gamut of blue nonsense decks. I played against a Niv Mizzet deck, so I played against blue-red.
So like blue-red control decks with Sarkhan?
Yeah, the Dragons deck specifically. I played against Turbo Fog.
Ooh, yeah, I've played a bit of this online.
It's a terrible matchup.
Is it?
I think.
I would have thought having access to stuff like Negate and just Shameful Stroke on the board would make it a bit better.
Okay, I won one matchup.
Okay.
Because of Niv Mizzet.
Sure, that also seems insane against them.
Being able to just like... So game 1, I literally was just like, okay, make 2 Phoenixes, play a 3rd Phoenix, beat. And I was kind of I was playing maybe a little bit conservative because I had not run across this deck yet before. It was playing like 4 colors as well.
Oh,
and,
okay.
There was like Temple Gardens and stuff like that. I was afraid like, oh god, like this is clearly a control deck. It's clearly a nonsense ramp deck.
Sure. It's
Turbo Fog of some variety. It might be playing Zakama. Could it be playing Settle the Wreckage?
So yeah, I wouldn't put that past them. The versions I've seen were like Bant and they weren't playing Settle. Mm-hmm. But like it's hard to say definitely they wouldn't, right? Because Settle is basically a fog.
Yeah. Basically, I got opponent down to 6 after like 2 big cracks. Because like I kind of tanked for a while. I'm like, if they have Settle, I don't think I can beat it. Sure. So like crack, put them down to 6, and then they just proceeded to cast many fogs and time walks. So I was like, okay, scoop it up. Game 2, I eventually just landed Niv Mizzet, and they were like, right.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
If they can just never remove... Like, fogs don't do anything against that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I crushed with that. And then in Game 3 was really close. Really good game. But basically, I just got expansioned out of the game. Like, they just, like, 4U, draw 4. And I'm like, okay.
Sure, yeah.
Play a threat B. And they're like, 5U, draw 4. And I'm like...
5U, draw 5, presumably.
Huh?
5U, draw 5.
Yeah, 5U, draw 5. And I was just like, gold. So it didn't feel good. It felt like they were able to play my end step. I had counter magic, but obviously post board, they're bringing in an extra negate.
Sure,
so, like, it felt like we're a bit at parity. Like, it felt like the game was about Niv. And, like, in the last game, I missed a lot of land drops before I could land a Niv early. So it was like, all right, rip me, whatever. Like, we had the tucking war with Teferi, and that was interesting. But anyways, lost that, so I was X2. And then I played against a bunch of control decks, and I was like, sweet, this is great. And then the last round, I faced the matchup that I wanted to all weekend, which was green-black, and got absolutely stonkingly crushed. I think I'm pretty happy to say, though, like, I think there's nothing I could have done in those games.
Sure.
Opponent had draws and lines that worked out really well, and that's great. And, you know, I got a little bit mana screwed, or they had, like... There was one sequence that was pretty nuts in Game 1. They ended up winning by ultimating Vivian Reed.
Ooh.
Which, spoilers, you can't beat the emblem.
No.
They also followed it up with the Zoni, so that was pretty fun.
That's so good!
Yeah, it was nonsense. But, yeah, so... Basically, not to dwell too much on bad beats, there was a sequence that involved me playing 2 Rekindling Phoenixes in a row, and the first time was Chupacabra Assassin's Trophy. I'm like, okay, I play the second Phoenix. You're not going to ultimate what's-her-face this turn. And he went, on 6 mana, he went, Plague Crafter? And I was like, oh, okay. Sure. Like, this is the game we're playing.
Yeah.
So my tournament ended there, but I had a really good weekend. I was happy with it. Gaz and Brad didn't make day 2 either, unfortunately. But I got chatting to some of the English guys as well, kind of expanded my network a bit. One of their players, I met a kind of contingent from Leeds, and there were a lot of nice guys, one of whom went like 9-0 to begin with.
Whew.
But then, unfortunately, it kind of tumbled all the way down, I think, to 10-5. So a bit unlucky. And there's 2 of them that ran pretty deep, and they were both on green-black. 3 Carnage Tyrant main.
Yeah, I think I was talking to one of them, I was talking to David Calf online a bit ago, and I got his like green-black list, which he was playing for the GP. And I had like 3 Carnage Tyrant. I think he did like reasonably well in day 2.
Yeah, basically, like... Looking at how the tables were oriented, like, as soon as I got closer to that winning in, suddenly there was so much more green-black around. But, like, during the day, during the whole tournament, like, it was underrepresented. So, like, for the matchups I got, I was pretty happy with my deck. Like, I faced two matchups of my worst, and pretty much every other matchup was, like, or I guess, like, 3 rounds of, like, what seemed like a terrible matchup, and 5 rounds of, like, yeah, like, this is what I'm here to play against.
Sure.
So, I don't think my deck choice was bad, but... That doesn't mean sometimes you don't lose.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was my tournament. I enjoyed it a lot. But it was pretty interesting looking at the top 8s from the weekend.
Looking at the actual like end of results for the weekend. At Lille, we had a top 8 which included 2 green-black, 2 Jeskai control lists, only 1 Phoenix list, a Selesnya tokens list, and then a final of mono red versus mono blue, with Gabe Nassif piloting the mono blue.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of fun because I faced him like I think maybe one of the last days before the GP.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been streaming a bunch of different stuff, and like his stream titles were always like, I don't know what to play, and then, like I was playing on one of the last days before the GP, and I ran into him online, and he was playing mono blue.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe I'll play mono blue at the GP. And then I see like, oh, yeah, Gabe Nassif makes the finals with mono blue. And I'm like,
fair enough.
Yeah. Which I think was really interesting. I think the top 16, if you expand it a bit further, has a lot more green-black, a lot more Izzet, and 1 more Jeskai.
Yeah, there's 3 Phoenix decks. There's 4 more black-green. Yeah. So, like, it seemed like black-green did pretty well at the weekend, and Phoenix did all right as well.
Black-green had a pretty good showing at Lille, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Phoenix also had, like, a reasonable showing. And then Jeskai was, like, all right. It was okay. But then, like, the whole event was won by mono red. And Mono Blue came second. I don't think anyone really predicted that.
Yeah.
Mono Blue has been getting a bit of press as like a budget option. It's so cheap. It's like $40 or something like that.
Yeah.
And everyone's always like, oh yeah, this is a really cheap deck. It's kind of it's a lot of fun. It's okay. It's not really competitive. And then like the more people have been playing it, the more people I think have actually been like, oh, it's kind of like when it's good, it's really good.
See, this is the thing is playing against the blue deck. Like I think it's actually just really good against any of the decks that want to like make it to the mid to late game.
Yeah.
But it feels like so bad against other aggro decks. And I mean, like, when I heard the matchup was red versus blue, I was like, oh, I think Gabe is sort of screwed here.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree that the mono blue deck, I think versions of it have played Diamond Mare in the sideboard.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, he is playing our Diamond Mare. But, like, I know I've played it a bit, and you definitely have, like, unbeatable draws. It feels like my mono blue opponents always have these draws where they go like turn 1 Mistcloaked Herald, turn 2 Curious Obsession, hold up Spell Pierce or Dive Down. You can never win, lol. And you just like you spend your game like you just you play a card and they counter it and they hit you for like 2 and they draw a card, and then you play a card and they counter it and they hit you for 2 and they draw a card, and then eventually you just like run out of cards and lose the game.
Yeah.
Or they like land a Tempest Djinn and kill you very quickly. So like the things that the deck does well, it does really well.
So I think it's interesting because like I think the blue deck is really good at being proactive.
Yeah, it's really good at playing from ahead, but it's really bad at playing from behind.
Yeah, exactly. It's like such a big tempo deck.
Its best card for playing from behind is Sleep, which should give you an idea of how bad it is at playing from behind.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think it shows something about the metagame. And like I think Gabe made a good call about being like people are going to be on Jeskai, they're going to be on Arclight Phoenix, they're going to be on Golgari.
They're going to be on decks that aren't putting me on the back foot very quickly.
Exactly.
And so that I can establish my like lead early and then just play from ahead the whole game. And this deck's really good when you're playing from ahead.
Exactly. So I think it was a heads up call.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see more of this. But then the question is, like, where do we go for there? Does that mean the aggro decks start coming back? Like, this is what I like, is, like, I feel like Standard's in a really healthy place.
I mean, I don't necessarily think that these results mean we'll see a lot of mono blue tempo. I think we might see a bit more of it than we have in the past. But sure. I don't think it will become, like, a massive metagame player.
Yeah, I think this was a choice of the weekend.
Yeah, I just think that it's too easily attackable. As we said, like, you just play something else aggressive, and suddenly the deck's like, oh no, I can't play from behind. I'm dead. The green-black mid-range lists, Javier Dominguez, current world champion and generally amazing Magic player, top-8'd with a 3 Carnage Tyrant main build that was playing no Vraska 6, so no Pirate Vraskas in the 75.
Which I think is just right.
Like, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, I think Big Vraska is just like, meh.
Yeah, I just don't think there's that many matchups where you're actually excited to play her. Guy Christopher Larson, his green-black mid-range list was playing 2 Carnage Tyrants main, 2 Vraska Relic Seekers. He was playing 2 Thrashing Bronzodons, which presumably was a reaction to some people online have been starting to play stuff like the Immortal Sun, which actually is kind of crazy against Golgari. Suddenly their only way of removing it is like Assassin's Trophy, which people were starting to trim on. So you just like play it, and it's like, oh, all my late game is gone.
Yeah.
And it can actually beat Carnage Tyrant because drawing 2 cards a turn and making all your creatures bigger and making them all cheaper means that you can generally like keep up with the Abyss / just being like, all right, put 3 things in front of it.
Yeah, you can't kill them all.
Yeah.
And we're going to trade. I wonder, this is interesting because like I've seen Immortal Sun coming out of the board for like the Boros decks. Yeah. So like looking to the other side of the pond, to GP New Jersey. Yeah. We had
Boros had a much better weekend in GP New Jersey than it did in GP Lille.
I did see it flying around. I don't know how much of the meta share it was, but I did see it flying around, but not in any significant numbers. Yeah. So I was pretty surprised when I saw the result. Like when I was getting updates on the way out of GP Lille, or on the Sunday or whatever, after, playing Legacy. I was lame and didn't play the PTQ. Again, I wanted to be fairly relaxed the weekend and have some fun. But hearing like a bunch of Boros was in the top 8 at New Jersey, I was like, what?
Yeah, 2 Boros lists made top 8. 2 more made top 16.
Very like, and that's a deck that's like not even present in Leo's top 16.
Yeah, so I've heard people talking about this. And what I've heard basically is that Phoenix was more popular in New Jersey, in America, and Control was more popular in Lille, in Europe. And Control is a pretty bad matchup for the Boros deck, and Phoenix is a pretty good matchup for the Boros deck.
Yes, Lyra is hard to beat.
Lyra's hard to beat. Kindling Phoenix is kind of a pain. Adanto Vanguard is like just generally good against Steam Vents.
Yes.
So all these cards suddenly are like, oh, you just have access to these massive haymakers that crush me. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Plus, I don't know if the top 8 lists had it, but people have been adopting a new... Yeah, so Brad Nelson, in his finals list, was playing 4 Tocatli Honor Guard in his main deck, which is a very targeted decision for the weekend.
Yeah, like, this is the thing. So, one of the first decks I looked at in this format was the Boros Angels deck.
Yeah.
Because it's in my wheelhouse. I like big Boros things.
He was playing Aurelia, he was playing Lyra. He was playing History of Benalia. All these things Holt is all about.
Exactly. But the reason I actually went away from the deck was like, okay, so how do I beat Disdainful Stroke and cancel? And then the other level, and like you have a bit of that. You have like a Adanto Vanguard. This is back when the lists were running like Deafening Clarion main deck.
Sure, yeah.
And you had like History of Benalia, and I was like, okay. And then the other level was like, wait, how do I be Ravenous Chupacabra?
Yeah,
like,
suddenly the problem of none of your creatures doing anything when they entered the battlefield was actually a really big deal.
Yeah, exactly. So like like you couldn't get value if your Lyras were just like dying to the 4-mana play they want to do anyways.
Yeah,
That's
and people were starting to play more Vivian Reeds.
Yeah.
So suddenly it was like not just Chupacabra, it was Vivian Reed, it was Vraska 6. Mm-hmm. It was all these number of things that just meant that, they just kill my Lyra or my Aurelia the moment it comes down. I'm down a card, they have the initiative.
Even if you trade stuff and you get some value, they're going to buy it back with like finality or whatever.
Yeah.
It just seemed bad. In my head, conceptually, I was like, I'm not sure I want to explore this that much.
Yeah.
So, when I see this list and it's like, 4 Tocatli Honor Guard main, I'm like, oh, you know what the heck you're doing. Like, you know what this is about. Like, you know what this matchup is like. And you go like, actually, I think the deck is good enough in other realms that I'm just going to pre-board. I'm going to pre-board against Green Black.
I will say, I don't think people should be doing this going forward. I think you should have them in your sideboards, but I do not think that main deck Tocatli Honor Guards are the place to be moving forwards, because I do not think that it is good in other matchups or good enough.
I also think, like, hey, we were talking, like, last week, or 2 weeks ago, we missed the podcast last week because I was away.
Yeah.
And I was super busy, like I was talking about. But a couple weeks ago, we were talking about, like, how much the metagame online felt like Green-Black. Like, everything was Green-Black.
I faced, like, I think something like 4 mirrors in one league.
I think this, like, now that we have these big tournaments, I think that completely flips the table on that. Like, Green-Black is always going to be a part of this format. I think
I've played maybe 4 or 5 leagues since these results got posted, and I've faced Green-Black maybe once.
Exactly. Going from leagues where we were playing some leagues that were just 5 Green-Black.
Yeah.
So
it's been a lot of Steam Vents mirrors.
Exactly. And given that, like, I think this was a sick call for the weekend.
Yeah,
I think it was a sick call to be like, okay, we are establishing a metagame. People think they know what the metagame is.
People think Green-Black's the best. And I'm going to play 4 Tocatli Honor Guard.
Yeah.
And I'm going to beat every Green-Black player I face. I'm going to go Tocatli Honor Guard into History, into, like, Aurelia, and how do they beat that without a Chupacabra?
Yeah, exactly.
How do they beat that without their Wild Growth Walker getting Explore triggers? Like, they'll have kept a hand that had, like, 3 lands in it, and a Jade Light Ranger, and the plan was that Jade Light Ranger would draw them more lands, and then suddenly the Jade Light Ranger is a 3-mana 2/1.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, against Green-Black, Tocatli Honor Guard just asks a big question. In the first, basically, 3 turns of the game is like, do you have Assassin's Trophy? Yeah. No? Okay, I think I just win.
I will say that the adoption of things like Vraska Golgari Queen is a reaction to Tocatli Honor Guard in some ways.
Yeah, that's fair.
That card is another good way of just being like, they play Tocatli Honor Guard, and you're like, alright, play this thing that kills it for cheap.
Yep.
And leaves me behind a thing.
Like, it's not exactly what I want to be killing or necessarily what I want to be doing, but it lets me play the game. Yeah. So I'm happy to have more ways to continue playing the game. And I can get behind that. That being said, I totally agree with you. If I sleeve this deck up for this weekend, I would not put 4 Tocatli Honor Guard main.
Like, I played against someone who was still playing the Tocatli Honor Guard main online, and I was playing Just Guy Control, and I mean, it was just embarrassing. They played 2, and I was like, oh. okay, you didn't draw 2 cards this game.
Mm-hmm.
Because this 1/3 is just totally irrelevant.
Yep.
And I dealt with the Rodanto Vanguard and then, annihilated them because they were down 2 cards, effectively.
Yeah.
So I think that the fact that Takali Onagard makes your matchup against your bad matchups so much worse does make it, a bit of a liability in your main deck, like I've said. But I do think that the deck isn't awful against control in general. It's just unfavored.
Yes.
I definitely think you can beat them. History Benalia continues to be a good card, and on the play, going Danto Vanguard into History, into Phoenix, can put them under tremendous amounts of pressure.
Yeah, Danto Vanguard is just the card you want in every single one of those matchups. And actually, looking at this list, so one of the things that obviously Brad's list is not nearly aggressively slanted enough. But usually the hose are the kind of thing that you use to leverage your Steam Vents matchup or your control matchup, whatever sweeper they're running, is you'd run Legion's Landing. Sure. And I kind of wish there was a bit more tools. I
definitely faced a lot of Legion's Landing decks. Let me check. Yeah, the other Boros list that made top 8, run by Nizar Sarhan, is playing Tajik and Legion's Landing. It's only playing one main deck to cut Leonagard because he's a lot more aggressively slanted, and presumably he's I can't afford to... I can't afford to be playing a 2-mana 1/3.
For sure.
In most matchups. He's playing a 3 Swiftblade Vindicators as well.
And Legion Warboss. Yeah. Militia Bugler. That's a way to grind.
Yeah. But yeah, he is playing Legion's Landing. I faced a reasonable amount of that from the Boros lists I've been facing off against. So I've also seen a reasonable amount of mono white / mono white splash red for heroic reinforcements.
There was a weird amount of mono white at the GP that I saw, much more than I expected. I know a couple weeks ago I was interested in toying with it, and being is there something?
I think the deck's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think it fills a similar slot. The way that I'm kind of thinking about the format now, and this kind of links into how we might think about Unified Standard as well. Yeah. And what the Team Scotland's thinking about for what's it called? WMC. Yeah, is that there's kind of these. Well, there's black-green. Mm-hmm. I think black-green's just there. There's your Steam Vents deck that is sort of either Phoenix or it's control of some flavor, whether it's Jeskai or Niv, really big in the Niv visit plan or something like that. And then you have these monocolored aggro decks, and you get them in almost every single flavor. Yeah. The only one you don't really see that much is black. But there's some Steel Leaf Stompy decks going around. I don't think they're that good. I think that's probably the
I've played them a bit, but I haven't been impressed really with them. The most impressive thing you can do with them is Wayward Swordtooth Experimental Frenzy turns, which can be insane, but I haven't found it to be very consistent at doing that.
Yeah, this is another thing that we've been kind of looking at as well, is wondering what sort of stuff is there, what's the deck building constraints around that. But the other deck, the other 3 colors, so your mono whites, your mono reds, and your mono blues, are all just these similarly aggressively linear decks. They have one game plan. They do that well and nothing else. Mm-hmm. I think red has a bit more game where they can play a longer game. They can play Rekindling Phoenix. They can be a bit more big.
Experimental Frenzy is a 1-card late game plan.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas so I ran a league last night with the team with the mono white deck, and it wasn't the kind of History of Benalia one. Mm-hmm. It was super, super low to the ground. We're running Healer's Hawks. Cool. Duskborn Sky Marchers.
Oh my god.
We're running 21 drops or something like that. And the game plan is just to be turn 1, play a 1-drop. Turn 2, play 2 1-drops. Turn 3, Lockstone, Benalish Marshal, or Legion's Landing into more nonsense. And I looked at it, I was Steven brought it to the table. And Steven's a great player. Sometimes he's got ideas that are a bit well, it's a bit out there. I'm not sure. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're not. As we've talked about so many times on this podcast, just because something's unusual, don't dismiss it. Yeah. But be willing to wonder about it and play with it and test it. Yeah. So we ran a league last night as a team and just were kind of talking through everything. And I was actually oddly impressed by looking at a lot of cards that are just bad, Gird for Battle. But when you're jamming it on a bunch of flyers,
that card is a very good rate if you're interested in doing what it's doing. Right?
Exactly.
It's 1 mana for 2 power, effectively with haste.
Yeah.
you would play... Like, that's Goblin Guide.
Yeah.
It's White Goblin Guide. You can't play on turn 1 and you need to have 2 creatures for, but...
It's Goblin Guide.
It's White Goblin Guide. It's a White Goblin Guide on, like, turn 2 or turn 3.
I think it's also important, like, the deck as we were playing it was foregoing Savannah Lands instead for, like, Suntail Hawks, basically. Sure. And just being like, all this power is evasive. Yeah, things
where it's better than... Like, putting +1/+1 counters on this is better than putting +1/+1 counters on your average creature is.
Yeah, like we had a nuts game. The first game we played was against Mono Blue. We had a nuts game where like we were like turn 1 play a 1/2, turn 2 play like I think.
Were you guys playing Rustwing Falcon?
Yes.
Whoa!
Yeah, but we were going deep.
I think I faced deck once. I think I was playing Control, so I think I just Deafening Clarion them. But
yeah, I was about to say I think the deck 100% loses the Deafening Clarion. But this is kind of the same as like the blue deck. It's like, how does this deck ever play from behind? It doesn't. Yeah. It just loses. How does the red deck beat, a lot of different things right now? I feel like there's Deafening Clarion, but there's also certain life gain strategies like the Selesnya decks. I think it's like, how do you ever beat those?
How do you ever beat a March of the Multitudes or a Tristani? You don't, buddy. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of on that same level where you have these like, basically what you get from having this one-dimensional game plan is like you like never lose to your mana.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay.
I've been playing a lot of Jeskai Control. I've lost a lot of games to my mana.
Exactly.
I've had a second white source on time, or I've had to keep a hand that is like 3 check lands, and suddenly I'm like, oh, this game would be fine if I was able to play an untapped land every turn, but I'm playing a tap land every turn, so I'm effectively on the draw.
That being said, I think if I was playing this weekend another like comp rel event, like obviously with the store championships it was a bit different, but if I was playing something this weekend, I think I would play one of these mono-colored decks, because I think given the top 8 performances, even if it's across the ocean, people are going to see Boros Angels in the top 8 and be like, oh, I need to adjust for that. And then there's still a bunch of Golgari, and Jeskai is favored in that matchup. I think a lot more people will move to going bigger and making control happen, and I think like the top 2 slots at Lille are like already indicative of that paradigm where people were trying to go over green black.
Sure.
And to me, mixed results. But they were like, okay, actually we're just going to do the linear thing and we're going to like go all the way to the top. And that's cool. Like, I think some of those decks like sometimes have some issues against green black, which I think it depends. I think the blue deck is probably the best one against green black. Whereas
the blue deck has been really impressive for me against green black because so many of their answers, because they're playing answers that are specifically like they're shaving on cast downs, they're shaving on Assassin's Trophies, they're going up on like Vraska Golgari Queens, which is actually quite good against the mono blue deck, especially if you can land it. Like if you can play that on a turn where they're tapped out and you can just uptick it. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it's like, okay, you can never play a Tempest Djinn.
Yeah,
because I'll kill it.
Yeah,
and like maybe you can have a dive down for it, but suddenly it like narrows down the field of relevant cards you have to just dive down. It can't be any of your counter spells.
Exactly.
But either way, they're moving towards more like 4 mana, 5 mana answers for your things. And my god, the blue deck is good at stopping 4 mana and 5 mana answers.
Yes, it is.
You like. I mean, I've been playing a bit of the top-8ing Phoenix deck from Lille, which is the Enigma Drake maximized velocity version, and I've been really impressed by just like. Your opponent plays a Vivian Reed or something and like down ticks on your Enigma Drake that's like a 7/4 and you're like, dive down, untap, kill you.
Yeah.
Like just, no, not killing Vivian, you're just dead.
Okay.
Because you tapped out for an answer and it didn't work and now you're just dead.
I think I'd be interested in playing a much more aggressively slanted one. Like, I know that was one of the things that I felt a little bit tough this weekend was like, how many hands can I keep where like I don't have like... You kind of just want a removal spell in your opening hand because you know you're not ending the game super quick. Like,
you want to have a shock or a lava coil.
Yeah, no matter what. Whereas, like, because your engine doesn't really start getting going realistically until like turn 5, turn 6, unless you have the nuts.
Unless you have an uncontested Goblin Electromancer. Yeah. You basically aren't getting a really aggressive start. I've been playing a bit of this Enigma Drake version. I've been very impressed by it. I haven't actually been that impressed by Maximized Velocity. At least I've never had games where it's been, like, super crazy. Mm-hmm. I have had games from my opponents where they've just like I had to tap out to kill their board and they go, okay, cool, play another Drake, maximize velocity, you're dead. But I've never had that happen from my end of things. I will say that Tormenting Voice is an awkward card to have in your list against the current, if you expect more people to be on control decks.
Yes.
Because that deck card does weaken you against control decks a lot.
I will say that like I think it might be fine to just stick with Arclight Phoenix at this point if things are going to go bigger to beat Boros and Golgari.
Yeah.
Because, okay, Phoenix just beats Control. Whatever.
Disagree slightly.
Woo.
I've been playing Eli Casis's Just Got a Control list that is playing 3 Seal Aways and 2 Settler Wreckages.
Mm-hmm.
And I have felt that my game against Phoenix has gone way up.
I believe that. If you're playing Sealaways rather than Justice Strikes, that changes the entire flavor of that matchup, I think, and makes you, have so much more game.
I also think it's reasonable if people are... Basically, I think that Eli Cassis had a really on-point list for the weekend if he's expecting Boros to end up doing well, because Adante Vanguard is just, a really problematic card for Steam Vents decks, as we've said. And so if you're just okay, cool, I'll just play Seal Away.
I think the biggest thing, that's tough about Seal Away is just, I don't think it's that good against green-black. And,
it's not amazing, but I don't think that Justice Strike is that good either. I don't think that any of your 2-mana removal options are very good against green-black, so I think it's fine to just say, sure, Seal Away.
I'd rather just play the option that is the whitest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think basically that,
How does that feel with the mana, I wonder? Because I know, a lot of... Control
it's been
decks
okay for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of the control decks have been more running a red removal spell in that slot.
Yeah.
So I wondered about running a white one when, obviously, the whole issue is we can't run blue-white. The mana issue
you end up bad. You end up being, red-white base in a lot of ways. You don't actually have very much double blue in your list because you're playing Iron Eyes instead of Sinister Sabotage. And you have more, double white. And then you're kind of a bit more evenly split between blue and red. So Eli Cassis' version also is playing 4 Azor's Gateway, which is a card that after having played a lot with it is really impressive.
Okay.
I think this card is just the truth.
Really?
For control decks. I think it's really good.
Okay.
So
I've never resolved this card, by the way, so...
So the front side is a lot better than you think. It ends up playing out a bit like a... it's so insane in control mirrors. If you're on the play and you play a Search for its counter, that's kind of scary.
I mean, right? It's probably the scariest card in the matchup.
I think this is scarier.
What?
So you're on the play and your opponent resolves an Azor's Gateway. They're going to kill you in 5 turns.
What's the backside do?
It makes mana equal to your life total.
Oh, God. So you can just, never lose a counter war, I guess.
Also, you can Banefire them for 37.
Ah! That's amazing!
Also, you can just Explosion them for 20. I've won so many game 1s in control mirrors where I'm just alright, I played this Azor's Gateway. I never have to do anything again.
Jeez.
I'm going to loot every turn. I'm going to discard my Deafening Clarions and my Seal Aways and all my, dead cards in this matchup. I'm going to discard my Teferis because I don't care. Because... that's not always what I do, but I'm going to discard these dead lands that I'm drawing. I'm going to I'm going to filter my draws incredibly powerfully, and then in 5 turns, give or take, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to gain 5 life, and I'm going to play, and then I'm going to on your end step play an Explosion for lethal, and I'm going to untap and play an Explosion for lethal.
Yeah. Okay.
With all the rest of my mana untapped.
Okay. That sounds pretty nuts. I can get behind that.
I also think it gives you a lot more game against aggressive decks that otherwise would be really hard. Stuff like Mono Red, which if your plan is yes, I'm going to lock them out of the game. It's that's really tough. Especially if game 1 your answers to Experimental Frenzy are Teferi, Tuck It, or Counter It.
Yeah.
Which suddenly your ability to win in this inevitability phase is much harder. And game 1 against Mono Red feels really tough for a lot of control decks. But Azor's Gateway gives you this option where you're okay, I'm going to survive until I can flip this gateway. It's going to gain me 5 life, and then I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the card's just really good. It's felt like my best card in every matchup.
Is this what you would play if you had to play a standard tournament this weekend?
Probably because I have the most reps with it right now.
Okay.
But I'd consider something like Mono Red or Mono White as well, because I do think that this deck's mana is not perfect. And that is its main failing right now.
I think
the tricolor control decks, that's their biggest weakness.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think the trend is going upwards. I think I would just leave it Mono Red, actually, for this weekend, and just be I'm going to have a good matchup against Phoenix.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a good matchup against Control.
Yeah, and I think that matchup against Green-Black is fine.
Yeah, and then...
I just need to pack enough things to kill their Wild Growth Walkers and not get too unlucky in my draws.
Yep. Play tight and how hard could it be?
Yeah, I will. So, Irakasis's list is kind of mad. It's all over the place in terms of numbers, but I've been pretty happy with them playing with them. He has 1 shock in his main deck. He has 1 Star of Extinction in his main deck.
I can dig it. There's so much card in his Tyrant main deck.
He has 1 Chemist's Insight in his main deck.
Okay.
He's playing 2 Divination. So there's a couple reasons for this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why Star of Extinction?
Yes.
Over the white
Cleansing Nova?
Yes.
I don't really know. It might be easier on the mana. But
you're playing Settle the Wreckage.
That's true. I think that
And you're playing Seal Away.
So I think the main reason is because it kills Planeswalkers.
That's a actual shout. Yeah, that's a fair point. So it deals $20 creatures and Planeswalkers.
Yeah, and it also blows up a land.
And against black-green, as we talked about before, that's relevant.
Yeah.
Get rid of that Memorial of the Falling.
Yeah, I found that relevant. I've also blown up Legion's Landings against Mono White.
Ooh, hot.
Which is... I wasn't beating them otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been okay with the Star of Extinction. It's playing 2 Divinations, which is an interesting choice. A lot of people find that a bit awkward. They are a little awkward, but I find that... basically the turn 3, especially on the play, is an odd turn right now because I feel you can tap out in a lot of matchups on turn 3. Especially against stuff like green-black, they just aren't going to do anything.
Yeah, they're going to play Jade Light Range.
Yeah, and you have 4 Deafening Clarions in your list, and you're not countering Jade Light Ranges. It's just not the way the games are meant to play out.
Yeah.
I feel against Phoenix as well, it's like, they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
If I'm on the play, I can just Divination, and that's fine. On the draw, sometimes, against a green-black, I sometimes feel comfortable tapping it on turn 3. That's a bit more dodgy. And Phoenix as well, because they might play a Crackling Drake. But basically, I find Divination is actually in a weird spot where I'm pretty happy tapping out for it, and it really helps you hit land drops, which is obviously what you want to be doing.
Okay.
It's also another 3-mana card for Azor's Gateway, which is relevant, because you don't have that many in the list. You have the 4 Deafening Clarions, and then the 2 Divinations, and then the 3 Ionizers. And basically, the thing about the 3 slot is that they tend to be either very bad or very good. To the point where you're like, I'm never looting away a Deafening Clarion in the early game against an aggressive deck. But I might loot away an Ionize.
Yes. Okay.
But if I'm not drawing Ionizes, I just don't have a 3 to loot away to it.
Yeah.
And against control decks, I'll definitely loot away a Deafening Clarion. But if I'm just drawing Ionizes, I'm not looting them away against the control deck.
Yeah.
So it ends up being in this weird spot where having this kind of neutral option, which is well, I can cast this and it can be good, but also I can just loot it away, is quite reasonable.
For sure. It sounds powerful. I can dig that. I will say I want to kind of turn the lens towards Unified Standard, because this is conjuring a lot of ideas for me. And we're talking about a lot of cards that are really important, I think. So basically, I think level 0, and I think many teams, especially teams that are not close geographically, they can't communicate very easily. They got through qualifiers or nationals or whatever in very different parts of their countries. I think probably level 0 is green, black, Jeskai, and mono red.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
I think that's basically Team Scotland have resolved to be okay, that's level 0. We don't have to experiment that much with that. We all know that these decks are fine.
Yeah, they're good. They mostly work together. If you don't play Shock in your Jeskai list...
you can play Ship and Fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fine.
And then, I don't think they otherwise share any cards. I do think that, it's interesting to look at where the bottlenecks occur when you're trying to put good decks together. Mm-hmm. Because green-black doesn't really take up any cards from anybody else aside from other green-black variants.
I was going to say, there is one deck.
Because you take up the Vraska's Contempts, right?
Yes. You take up some number of Vraska's Contempt, and you take Duress.
Yeah.
I think those are the 2 most important bottleneck cards.
So
I'm open to be
control could be basically you can't run Esper alongside.
Well, actually, okay.
Well, you also can't run the blue-black / Dimir decks.
Yeah, Grixis decks.
Yeah, the Grixis decks even. That's the main thing, right? Yeah, you can't run Grixis and green-black.
So it depends, right? So this is the thing. The way I've been kind of looking at it and thinking about it is kind of okay, what are the decks I want to play? What are the cards that I think are just good, really strong in Standard right now, and are strong in the specific context where you're probably going to play against a mid-rangey deck, a control deck, and probably
some kind of aggressive deck.
Or potentially two aggressive decks and one mid-range deck.
I do think that the monocolor decks are kind of a free roll, and I would expect to see a lot of one of them in people's lineups.
Tons. And that's what makes me want to have a Deafening Clarion deck.
Yeah.
So that's one deck I want to play. And I've actually been scrutinizing a lot the Boros Angels list from before.
Yeah,
the ones not with Nathaniel.
The ones with Deafening Clarion.
Exactly, and being like, wait, does Mono Red just 100% lose to this?
Yeah, I think that they probably do.
Yeah, so you're basically taking if you bring Boros as one of your slots, there's a 1 in 3 chance that they just have a free win.
Yeah, I will say though that needing to have a Deafening Clarion deck puts you in this awkward spot because I feel like a lot of the red decks share a ton of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that red is a big bottleneck, where black actually isn't that big of one. There's a couple of decks that share black cards, but actually you can kind of get away with it.
For sure.
And green actually doesn't feel like a big bottleneck either, because nobody's playing green except green-black, and mono green, but alright.
They even use different cards, realistically.
Yeah, you can probably just play a non-Lano Royals version and get away with stuff. But in terms of red, I feel like there's a huge amount of crossover.
Yeah, you can't play Boros Angels and Mono Red, or Boros Angels or Mono White.
Can you even play Phoenix alongside any of the other red decks?
Okay, so actually, my hot take is that the one deck I do not want to play, and I'm actually pretty resistant to playing in Team Unified Standard, is Arclight Phoenix.
Okay.
I just never want to sign this card up, because green-black, it's slightly favored, depending on your variant.
Sure.
But it's still tough.
Yeah.
There's going to be...
You still have to work for the wins.
And your matchup against the aggro decks are your worst matchups.
Sure.
So it's kind of the opposite effect.
You're banking on everyone else bringing a Deafening Clarion deck, and then you facing that Deafening Clarion deck.
Yeah, exactly. Which is okay. And I think there will be a reasonable amount of teams that are just actually, I think, if people are bringing Jeskai, I don't want to bring Jeskai.
Yeah.
I want to bring 2 aggro decks.
Sure.
And if that's the case, and you're playing Phoenix, it's oh my god.
I think it's interesting because Phoenix is reasonable against the level 1 that you described. Mm-hmm. If the level 1 is green, black, Jeskai, and mono red, Phoenix doesn't want to face mono red, but it's pretty happy to, if you're bringing Phoenix to face those other 2, right?
Yeah.
So
the thing is, I don't think green-black is nearly as favorable as it once was. Because the kind of other slot that I really want to run is a Carnage Tyrant deck. Because I think Carnage Tyrant is basically great against everything. Every deck that could be played, except for literally one of the monocolored aggro decks.
Sure.
So, I want to run green-black or some green deck that has Carnage Tyrant main deck. But I think
that right now that is just green-black. I don't think that the aggro decks can play Carnage Tyrant main deck.
I'm on the same level. I also think it's just the best at being a Carnage Tyrant deck.
Yes.
So, okay, I want green-black in that slot. I want Carnage Tyrant. If everyone else is doing that, I don't think green-black... Actually, I think, if you're at the point where you're, 3 Carnage Tyrants main, game 1's so hard as Phoenix.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're running the Enigma Drake lists
and
stuff
maybe
that,
you can get away with... Maybe you can beat them then a bit more easily. Because you're a bit more aggressive and a bit faster.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Dive down is also a big game there.
Maybe you just have to be, much, much more all in with Phoenix. But in general, I'm kind of I don't want to play Phoenix. I'm not that interested. There's only one matchup where I'm going to be really happy about. And that's not, I don't think that's the way you win in team formats.
I enjoy that, because you've said now that you want to have a Carnage Tyrant deck, you want to have a Deafening Clarion deck, and then you want to have a monocolored aggro deck. So what you've described is level 1.
Well, I was thinking, actually, I don't necessarily think we want I think the monocolored aggro deck is what people will do.
Sure.
What I was actually thinking is, I want something that beats up on... Basically, I want something that has a lot of the game against aggro, and so... Basically, I want a 50-50 deck in the middle of all those, and I'm wondering if the answer to that is Grixis.
Okay.
Where you're playing, you have the early removal in the moments of craving to deal with the stupid aggro deck.
Sure.
You can grind card for card with green-black. I think green-black is probably favored once you get into 6, 7, 8 mana.
Maybe, I don't know. Nicol Bolas is a real bad card for green-black.
And then, against control, you get all of your counter magic suite. The only thing that's really tough about it is okay, who gets Evrastus Contempts? Yeah. I think Grixis does.
Yeah, I think Grixis does. Because I think that Ravenous Chupacabra is too important to the green-black deck. But then you're just accepting that green-black will lose to the Rekindling Phoenixes that your opponent's playing.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the level where it's okay, who gets Duresses? Clearly green-black.
Yeah.
And then how much counter magic am I jamming? But I kind of like that. I like that as Like, I don't think that's bad. I want to experiment with it. But that's where I'm at right now is, like, going, like, Green-Black, Grixis, and Boros Angels.
Okay. I think that's an interesting, like, first take.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, like, it's possible that one of the monocolored aggro decks actually ends up being too powerful not to play.
Yeah, I think that there's a strong possibility of that where, like, all your decks have to be at least, like, 50-50 against mono red, for example, to be like, I'm not playing mono red. You know what I mean? Just because, like, we were saying, like, you don't die to your mana, it's super linear and strong and whatever. Obviously, we're still experimenting. We don't know for sure. We're definitely approaching the Scottish Store Championship as, like, let's experiment.
Sure.
Rather than being like, let's play the best decks and try and win this thing. Like, it's more just like, yeah, if we do great, that's good. But
I think that gaining information is way more important.
Exactly. So that's how we're kind of approaching it. We have a lot of other decks that we're trying to explore as well. We're looking at green-white.
Sure, there have been some interesting green-white lists. Green-white had a couple of top 8 showings, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was 2 green-white lists in the top 8 of Jersey. A Selesnya Angels list, which is playing, like, 4 Decathlon Honor Guard main deck, 3 Adanto Vanguard. It's less tokensy and a bit more, like... I think I faced this online. It's just a bit more, like...
mid-range.
Yeah. Like a Selesnya mid-range, and then a Selesnya tokens list played by Zach Turgeon. The Angels list was played by Kellen Pastor. It's Zach Turgeon, which is, like, a lot more of what we're used to seeing. 4 Venerated Loxodon, 3 Trustani Discordant, 4 March of the Multitudes.
And I think these decks, the March of the Multitudes deck, beats up really hard on the aggro decks.
Yeah.
Because, like, you just get to...
You just lifelink fireball them.
Yeah, well, also,
the blocks.
Like... So these decks are basically, like... You basically build up a critical mass and you snowball them. And you just make an undefeatable board state. And red and mono white and mono blue just don't have the tools to manage the board state.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough counters, there's not enough burn, or you don't have enough Healer's Hawks, you're not going to be fast enough to be able to outrace Flippin' March of the Multitudes.
So, I have a list for you here from the top 16 of GP New Jersey, which is a green-white mid-range list with 3 Carnage Tyrant main deck, 4 Adanto Vanguard, 3 March of the Multitudes, 2 On Serra's Wings.
Yes,
and 2 Vine Mare.
Yeah, boggles. We were talking through this list as well about being like, okay, if we think like everyone's gonna be playing green black,
if you think Carnage Tyrant's good, maybe this is the best Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah, just play boggles.
Yeah, you just play Carnage Tyrant, and you're like, okay, maybe I can race this. Okay, and you're like, make it a lifelinking. Like, is it what lifelink vigilance?
I think it's like +2/+2 lifelink.
+1/+1.
Okay.
+1/+1. Flying vigilance lifelink.
Yeah, you can. It's flying, trample, vigilance, lifelink,
hexproof,
8/7.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Unbeatable.
Yeah.
Like, strictly unbeatable, right? They have to remove the On Serra's Wings. They have to, like, play an Eldritch Reborn, be already insanely good against Eldritch Reborn. Like, maybe this is the best Carnage Tyrant deck.
I find it hard to believe, but it could be. I think the biggest thing going for it is, like, the Adanto Vanguard thing. Like,
I think that gives you, like, a lot more game against Deafening Clarion, in my experience. Adanto Vanguard is just a continually difficult card for Deafening Clarion decks to beat.
I mean, I know in the config I've described of being, like, green-black, Grixis, Boros Angels, like, I'm definitely playing Adanto Vanguard in my Angels list.
Yeah. I mean, like, although your list is, like, surprisingly resilient to Adanto Vanguard with your Deafening Clarion choice.
Yes.
Like, because the Jeskai control lists are generally quite soft to them. Even the one I was playing with, like, 2 Settle, 3 Seal Away, that's what you got.
Yeah.
If you don't draw them, and if you aren't able to use them effectively against the Adanto Vanguards, if they draw, like, 2, for example, and you have 1 Seal Away, you probably die.
Mm-hmm.
So, having your Boros list be like, I'm not just dead to it. It's okay. Like, yes, I'm playing a Deafening Clarion deck, but also I'm playing a Lyra deck, so I can just be like, alright, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You made it down to Vanguard. Make an Aurelia. Okay. It blocks your thing forever.
Mm-hmm.
Go away now.
Yeah.
Also, I'm actually pressuring your life total, so you're spending life. It's not just an indestructible 3/1.
Yeah.
Like, there's more to this than that.
That's one of the things is, like, I feel like a lot of decks might be, like, kind of look at the... So this is the interesting thing, right? Is, like, the level 1 we're describing as, like, a very mid-range deck, a very controlled deck, a very aggro deck.
Yeah.
And I think if any decks... Basically what I want to do is take a lot of the leveraging that other lists might be, like, trying to tweak and tune for to be like, okay, we need something to beat the control deck for all of our decks, or we need something to beat the aggro deck for most of our decks, and be like, yeah, actually we just bought a bunch of mid-range.
Yeah.
we're just going to value town you and make a bunch of sideboard slots dead.
Yeah.
Or a lot of main deck configurations that you're like, I need to make concessions to these two decks I'm going to see and be like, yeah, you made a lot of concessions to try and be able to sweep the board, and I'm going to play a Lyra. Or I'm going to play Nicol Bolas. Or whatever it is.
I will say that Grixis is by far the best Eldest Reborn deck in the format. I'm not sure how exciting that actually is to be right now, but you are.
Yep.
And it helps that Eldest Reborn brings back your Nicol Bolas on the same turn that you can flip him.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
I've definitely lost to people being like, alright, play Nicol Bolas on turn 4, and I'm like, alright, counterspell it, and they're like, okay, cool. And then they like land an Eldest Reborn, and I'm like, that resolves. And they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to flip a Nicol Bolas.
Basically,
you're going to die.
I think the biggest consideration to actually think about if running Grixis is the call we make is actually comes down to one card I'm really thinking about, which is Disinformation Campaign.
Sure.
Because, like, beats up really hard on control.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing against mono red, right?
Exactly. Is there a way we can leverage the deck enough where, like...
Is it a sideboard card?
Maybe. I was thinking maybe it's, like, not 4 of main deck, it's, like, 2 of.
Okay. And then maybe you have more in the sideboard, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's the kind of thing where when it's the game plan, it's really good. And it's actually pretty good against green-black as well.
I also think it's kind of cool because that, like, obviously it's not nearly as the same effect, but you have Thought Erasure in Grixis.
When you line up discard to be a critical mass of it, I've definitely lost with decks that weren't necessarily soft to discard, but when my opponent went like turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Thought Erasure, turn 3 Disinformation Campaign, then I'm like, I just don't have anything left. I don't have any resources.
Yeah, and the thing is, the thing that I like about this as well is it kind of takes pressure off the Duress slot in general. Is like, if I have a bunch of Disinformation Campaigns, yes, it is not the same thing. But I do have Thought Erasure. And I also have Disinformation Campaign. And is that good enough to replace? Campaign
is good against stuff like Saddle Wreckage out of Jeskai.
That's where it shines, right?
Yeah, you're able to be like, okay, cool. Well, I'm just not going to attack until you're totally out of cards.
Yeah. And I can dig it. So I'm excited to experiment with Grixis. Okay, bottom line, if you take 3 decks, you're the captain of your standard unified team for Murphy's Vault. What do you tell everyone to play? Given that they're all robot automatons.
Sure, they're all
basically Alex is.
They're all equally capable of playing any decks. Mono red, mono blue, mono white. Boom.
You're kidding me, right?
Yeah, mostly. Although I don't actually hate that lineup.
Yeah.
That lineup's kind of fun. I might if I was literally preparing for like the thing this weekend, which we have no time for. I might just be like, yeah, all right, guys, just play, like, which of these aggro decks do you like the best? We're just going to play all of them.
Okay.
I think that, in actuality, if I was thinking about it, green-black is probably a little bit too good to not play.
Yes.
In terms of raw power level, and it just takes so few cards from other places that it's probably reasonable to play it. I think Grixis is an interesting shout, but I also would probably end up, like... I don't know. I probably would end up with a mono red player.
So you'd go for level 0?
Pretty much.
Okay,
I might not play Jeskai Control, but I might. I think that it's possible that I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I actually weirdly like the Selesnya midrange list, but I haven't tested with it at all, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
Maybe you can play like a mono white player instead of a mono red player, and then play like Boros. Wait, no, you can't do that, right? No. Maybe play mono blue. Mono blue takes no cards from anyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's really. I mean, I know, but mono blue probably isn't like a top tier deck, but it did just come second at a GP, and like it takes no cards from anybody. No, you know what? I'm locking it in: mono red, mono white, mono blue.
Okay,
we're taking Team America to any store, any Team Unified standard event I go to.
All right. Well, I think on that note, we'll have to report next week. And
we'll talk to you about how the event goes.
Yeah, that sounds good. And see if there's kind of any insights that come out of it. I love unified formats because data's really funny. And like you don't have a ton of configs to go off of. It's a lot more creative, I find. You get a lot more input, and sometimes you can just do wacky stuff, and it's really strong because it just kind of turns a lot of expectations of what people think will be there on its head. So I don't know. Maybe we'll play Team America.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Do it. Slam it. Just kill everybody. Just like show up, sit down, make him dead, go home. That's the deal. That's the ideal.
Just play as little magic as possible.
Yes. All right. Thank you for listening, guys. If you want to hear more from us, please feel free to subscribe to our podcasts on both either YouTube or iTunes, or follow us on Twitter. I am at F_Ironside, and Holt is
at Cap'n Powerhouse, CAPNPOWERHAUS.
Check out our sponsor, Murphy's Vault. They have excellent articles. They have an excellent single store on murphysvault.com. You can buy tickets to any of their events. If you're ever in Edinburgh, please come down and see us. It will be a great time, we promise. The store is a lot of fun.
You can see my hardened, wizened face.
Yeah, Holt has a very wizened face. It's actually wizening in front of me right now.
Is it like to the point where it's bordering on forlorn, would you say?
No.
Okay. I'm not there yet.
No.
One day.
Maybe you'll never be there.
Dang.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We have been From the Vault, and you've been fantastic.